I opened my eyes to find that every trace of my wife had vanished. Her art studio, the detached garage,
Here's your violation
the easels,
notice.
3
You've got to be
decades of
kidding me.
Sarah's
Rules are
canvases,
rules.
pulverized at 3 a.m. While I slept soundly upstairs. No heads up, no courtesy call, only a pile of splintered wood and twisted metal. The HOA slapped a $200 invoice in my palm with a self-satisfied grin, labeling it an emergency abatement fee for a building legally permitted back in 1987. Bethany, the board president, curled her lip and said, "Perhaps now you'll blend in with respectable folks." Right then, Sarah's last works, completed mere weeks before the cancer claimed her, were being compacted
Justice
into
is
a
finally
truck.
here.
That single
Listen to
act
Bethany's
became their
voice.
undoing.
I saw
The
everything
outfit they
that night.
contracted for
That's
the
enough.
wrecking job,
Hand it over.
I own
Say
it. Every flatbed and winch that tore down her haven belonged to my fleet. For months, they had quietly hired my trucks to intimidate other residents. I possessed every invoice, every recorded call, every fabricated excuse. What do you do when your tormentors have been unwittingly funding the ideal payback? 3 weeks afterward, I looked Bethany square in the eye and said, "Respectable people don't obliterate a widower's keepsakes, but they certainly earn precisely what's coming to them." I never imagined I'd be rattling around alone at 52. Sarah and I had charted our future meticulously, every dollar accounted for. We'd spent 15 comfortable years in our unpretentious corner house on Maple Grove Lane, sketching retirement plans on napkins over late-night tea. That detached garage had been transformed into a private refuge, brimming with works in progress and the sharp, comforting aroma of turpentine that somehow turned the whole place into home. Then the illness arrived without invitation. 8 months after we laid her to rest, I was still figuring out how to brew enough coffee for a single cup. I kept catching myself reaching for her preferred brand of yogurt at the market, then quietly putting it back. I left the garage untouched, exactly as she'd last seen it. Easels angled toward the natural light, tubes of color strewn across the bench, that half-done Vermont honeymoon vista still resting on the central stand like it was only waiting for her to return. My income came from Ollie Recovery Services, the modest towing outfit I'd bootstrapped after stepping away from heavy construction. Nothing glamorous, just myself, a pair of reliable rigs, and Rita, the dispatcher who'd stuck with me from the first day. I deliberately kept my professional life separate from the neighborhood. The work truck stayed at a commercial yard on the other side of town, and I drove an ordinary pickup to and from home. The storm clouds gathered 3 months earlier when Bethany Kensington Mills purchased the oversized house 2 blocks away and swiftly maneuvered herself into the HOA compliance chair. She belonged to that class of people who had never held a wrench or swung a hammer, yet felt entitled to dictate how laborers should present their properties. Her gleaming white Escalade likely cost more than I earned in a year, and her demeanor reminded me of a meter made on steroids. Within days of taking office, she mailed me a violation letter concerning my non-conforming accessory building. The garage predated our purchase, completely zoned and approved, but it failed to match Bethany's vision of suburban perfection. "It's a blight," she declared at the monthly meeting, waving her arms theatrically as though unveiling courtroom evidence. Neighborhood values plummet when people treat their yards like salvage lots. I attempted a civil discussion, produced the original blueprints and approvals, pointed out the structure's place in the subdivision's early history, one of the inaugural buildings when the development broke ground. Bethany had zero interest in facts, legacy, or common courtesy. What truly grated was the smug, rehearsed smile she wore while issuing threats. The kind of expression that broadcast exactly how much leverage she believed she held and how powerless she assumed I was. The citations snowballed rapidly. Setback discrepancies, unacceptable roofing, you name it. I devoted weekends to poring over the HOA covenants and discovered that the majority of her accusations were either obsolete or outright invented. By then she had enlisted Steve and Linda Morrison, retired busybodies who treated enforcement like an Olympic event, to back her play. Neighbors began averting their gazes, not from spite but from fear of becoming her next mark. The lingering scent of Sarah's oils in that garage made the prospect of its destruction feel like another funeral. Then came the Sunday evening I returned from my daughter's birthday weekend in Columbus. I had secured the building carefully before leaving. When I turned into the drive, the garage had disappeared. Not one plank or brush remained, just bare slab and a violation notice staked into the ground like a grave marker. Emergency removal executed due to imminent danger. Demolition charge, $1,200. Processing fees, $350. Non-compliance within 48 hours incurs further penalties. I stood frozen, clutching the paper, gut-punched. 30 years of memories, Sarah's final pieces, everything carted to oblivion because one woman deemed it unattractive. My daughter, Katie, labeled my initial reaction contained rage. Dawn after dawn, I stared at the vacant concrete, plotting each step deliberately. Sarah used to tease that I was a freight train, slow to build momentum, impossible to halt once underway. First destination, the county permitting office. Experience had taught me that bureaucrats respond far better to courtesy than confrontation, so I arrived bearing coffee and pastries. Margaret, the veteran clerk who remembered typewriters, retrieved the records. Erected in 1987, she said, peering over her lenses. All approvals in order, every inspection cleared. No safety flags on file. She printed a hefty packet and slid it across the counter with a kind nod. Looks like your HOA is bending the regulations, dear. Loaded with proof, I headed directly to Bethany's mansion. Her SUV dominated the drive like a yacht in a kiddie pool. The doorbell chimed grandly. She appeared in expensive athleisure, flashing that glacial smile. Curtis, how nice. We have to discuss the garage, I said, lifting the folder. Here are the original documents. It was fully compliant. Her grin stayed fixed. Those ancient permits? They fall short of our updated criteria. The board approved revised architectural rules last month. Your building breaches at least half a dozen. What revisions? No notice ever reached me. Check your inbox, she said, flicking her wrist. We went digital to save trees. Very eco-friendly, right? Line number 1. A monitored email like it was payroll. Habit from years when a missed memo could sink a job site. 0 HOA messages about rule changes existed. Over the following 48 hours, I phoned every board member. Steve cut me off. Linda claimed she was swamped. Old Frank Wilson sounded bewildered. Updating bylaws? We discussed general improvements, but nothing specific. Memory plays tricks these days. Bethany was running a con, floating fuzzy motions, then declaring passage on precise items never formally voted. Ruthlessly effective. Rather than surrender, I resolved to reconstruct. Sarah's finished pieces and supplies waited in the basement. I couldn't bear to view them, yet couldn't discard them. If Bethany craved perfection, I'd deliver a garage that laughed at scrutiny. My former crew helped. In 7 days, we raised a building that surpassed code in every category. Reinforced base, enhanced wiring, impact-resistant shingles. Painted the precise, HOA-approved neutral tone. 48 hours later, another ticket appeared. Obstructs site triangles. Must relocate or demolish within 72 hours. I measured it repeatedly. My placement sat farther back than neighboring lots. Visibility matched or exceeded the norm. Fire engines had navigated my drive during a blaze 2 years prior, without complaint. Cruising the streets, I cataloged violations everywhere. Bethany's own oversized garage jutted closer to the curb. The Petersons blocked more line of sight. The Washington's extension broke multiple rules, yet stood untouched. This wasn't regulation enforcement. This was Bethany deciding a working-class widower didn't belong in her polished enclave. She didn't yet realize I'd spent a lifetime handling bullies and knew precisely how to counterpunch. Next phase, driveway obstruction. Each morning at 8:15, her Escalade parked fully across my access, positioned with surveyor precision for maximum disruption. I stood sipping coffee, watching vapor curl upward, feeling an internal gear click into place. She emerged in pristine workout gear that had never met actual exercise, strolled to her mailbox with exaggerated nonchalance, then glanced my way. Pardon, I called. You're blocking me in? Oh dear, am I? She replied with feigned innocence. Rushing to yoga. Parked in a hurry. I'll shift it later. She departed, stranding me. Important meetings, new client pitch, doctor refill for my diabetes, postponed. This pattern repeated daily. Sometimes quick release, sometimes hours or overnight. The police classified it civil. Code enforcement bounced me back to the police. After 7 days of chaos, I missed a critical medical appointment and ate the no-show charge. That pushed me toward my strongest weapon, evidence. I installed high-end cameras, hardwired, night vision, cloud-backed, not bargain bin junk. My years on job sites and Sarah's insurance battles had drilled the value of proof into me. The system recorded her intentional blocking, her satisfied smirks, the extra minutes she lingered scrolling while I waited. Then she countersued, alleging stalking via surveillance aimed at her residence. A deputy arrived Thursday evening. I welcomed him in and demonstrated the feeds. Every lens covered only my land, drive, rebuilt structure yard. Her house stayed out of frame, though her SUV appeared whenever it trespassed. Cameras look correctly oriented, Deputy Rodriguez said, tipping his cap. Homeowners can watch their own property. Mind telling me the real story? I laid it out. Demolished garage, relentless parking blockade, campaign to drive me away. He listened, scribbled, then sighed. Classic HOA overreach. New power, old sanity. Keep filming. Solid evidence trumps everything. As Rodriguez left, I glimpsed Bethany spying through her blinds, wondering about the cruiser. Next escalation, orange cones encircled my drive with a fire lane, no parking placard. She'd apparently persuaded the department to restrict my access. Fire Chief Murphy sounded baffled on the line. We never authorized that. Someone phoned pretending to represent the association, complaining of access problems. We don't slap restrictions on verbal requests. Somebody's yanking chains. He dispatched a ladder truck. Crews measured, tested swing radius, declare my drive superior for emergency ingress compared with most corner properties. Whoever phoned fabricated it. Murphy announced loudly for the assembled onlookers. Your driveway complies fully. Cones removed. Bethany observed from her window as her fake barriers vanished. She had lied to officials and misjudged neighborhood gossip speed. Time to demonstrate genuine escalation. By week 3, her tactics grew sloppy. Parking blockades turned inconsistent, sometimes forgotten for hours, sometimes moved prematurely. She was unraveling, and experience taught me that fraying people err. The blunder arrived Tuesday while I repaired irrigation. Voices drifted. Bethany was gesturing wildly at Jim Peterson 3 doors down. 20 minutes later, Jim shuffled to my fence, eyes averted. Decent man, ex-electrician who'd wire my rebuild, now visibly uneasy. Bethany mentioned worries about your setup, he muttered. She's calling a safety forum. Asked me to pass the word. Safety forum about? Says the cameras unsettle folks, claiming the garage creates blind spots for children on bikes. Jim, those lenses cover only my land. Kids have biked that curve for 30 years without incident. I know, but she's got people nervous. Says the city could step in if the HOA stays idle. Nobody wants inspectors crawling everywhere. After he departed, I stood absorbing the shift. She had pivoted from personal attacks to neighbor recruitment, spreading selective truths and invented dangers. The safety forum occurred Saturday in her great room. My cameras logged 12 attendees, including the Morrisons and bewildered Frank. No invitation arrived for me. Sunday yielded an HOA letter bearing 8 signatures demanding camera removal and garage relocation for safety compliance, citing privacy invasion and access blockage. Claims already refuted by professionals. 8 names intimidated you until you recalled 43 occupied homes in Maple Grove. She banked on conflict aversion. My counter was careful. I duplicated surveys, the fire clearance memo, camera diagrams. Hand-carried packets to every residence, accompanied by a handwritten note. I recognize concerns regarding my security system. To clarify, All devices monitor solely my premises and were added following repeated property interference and destruction. The attached fire letter verifies driveway compliance. If you have particular issues, please reach out directly so we may address them as neighbors. The reaction was swift. 5 households apologized for acting on partial information. 3 voiced fury at manipulation. Mrs. Palmer delivered a hot dish and recounted Bethany's failed crusade against her backyard tomatoes as aesthetically incompatible. Digging deeper into records for that mailing, I uncovered gold. Bethany's Escalade carried commercial registration, over 10,000 pounds GVWR, same class as box trucks. Residential streets forbade overnight commercial parking absent permits. Blocking drives violated ordinances she weaponized against others. For weeks, she had broken the very rules she accused me of ignoring. I sat back, sensing Sarah's quiet approval. She always insisted bullies supply their own noose. You merely wait. That Tuesday night, insomnia drove me to review footage from the demolition evening, something I'd avoided. Watching Sarah's sanctuary dismantled felt like reliving her final breath. Deputy Rodriguez's advice echoed. Preserve every frame. Fresh brew, laptop, timestamp 11:23 p.m., garage intact. 2:17 a.m., headlights. A heavy wrecker reversed in. I recognized the logo instantly. Iron Horse Towing. The operator worked swiftly, chains secured, hydraulics engaged, structure lifted in 12 minutes flat. Iron Horse. The name rang bells. I logged into the company database. Ollie Recovery had absorbed Iron Horse 3 years prior when its retiring owner found no successor. I retained the brand for continuity, kept the line active, folded operations under my umbrella. I owned the firm that raised Sarah's studio. Trembling, I retrieved October 14th dispatch logs. 1:30 a.m. Emergency request. Structure hazard. Immediate removal. Caller, Bethany Mills, HOA authority. Signed authorization. Her distinctive flourish matched every citation. She had phoned my own business, deployed my equipment and crew to erase my wife's legacy. The HOA check, $1,200, hit my account days later. She had literally paid me to break my own heart. Shock gave way to clarity. She assumed she'd hired an independent operator. Instead, she delivered ironclad evidence of her vendetta. Timestamps, signature, audio. I played the call. Her crisp command filled the kitchen. Emergency priority. Structure presents clear danger. Remove tonight. Invoice Maple Grove, HOA. Attention Bethany Mills. Authorizing under emergency provision. Lies, frozen in digital amber. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. She had gifted me the means to dismantle her reign. I descended to the basement. Sarah's overflow archive of completed works, bulk supplies, annotated books. I carried the easel upstairs, arranged brushes in her handmade jar, squeezed pigments onto her old palette. The turpentine scent bloomed again. I almost heard her whisper, "Don't overcomplicate it, Curtis. Living well can be the sharpest reply." But I planned more than survival. I planned precision. First conversation, Rita, boss, about Iron Horse and that Mills woman. I kept thinking her voice was familiar. She's phoned us 4 times in 6 months. Details poured out. Bogus abandoned vehicle tows, permitted dumpsters removed, then reinstated at our expense. Legal boat trailers hauled anyway. Bethany had treated my company as her personal bully squad. Next, attorney Dave Brennan. Fascinating, he said. False authority, misrepresentation, pattern of misuse, potential fraud, harassment, abuse of process. HOA officers lack unilateral demolition power absent verified threats or board votes. She built a beautiful trail of liability. Plan, preserve records, collect neighbor affidavits, orchestrate public exposure. Preparation felt sweetest in the garage, inspecting hydraulics. Sarah used a laugh that I could rebuild any engine blindfolded, yet fumbled basic appliances. Strategy, simple, devastating. The corner lot offered a perfect vantage. Cameras already covered approaches. If she persisted in blocking, I'd respond with professional courtesy, using the very firm she favored. Phone preset to Iron Horse Dispatch. Documentation binder ready. Block party loomed next Saturday. Ideal stage. The preceding week, her desperation peaked. Erratic, metallic, like scorched linings. Coalition crumbled, question monted. Monday, she pushed an emergency board vote, stripping my rights. Frank Wilson phone, perplexed. She claims your cameras filmed children. The garage breaks new municipal rules, but I drove past. Everything appears proper. Wednesday, I delivered pointed letters to board members citing bylaw breaches. No required notice, invalid quorum. Attached refutations and timeline. The meeting was postponed indefinitely. Friday, code enforcement arrived, laser measures clipboards. Third false complaint from her address in 30 days. Officers departed shaking heads, promising malicious reporting paperwork. Bethany had now deceived fire, sheriff, county, misdemeanor territory. Saturday dawned crisp, smelling of charcoal and autumn. Block party prep underway. Sarah's Vermont canvas, finally completed, stood on the easel. 11:30 a.m. Her Escalade stormed my drive, angled aggressively, sealing every inch. Power suit, heels, statement jewelry. She marched my door, pounded, and waited, arms folded. I counted slowly, confirmed a recording, and opened. Curtis, time to resolve this. I'm offering fair market cash, quick close, no contingencies. Not interested. Think realistically. New standards will roll out soon. Non-conforming buildings must conform or vanish. The board approved unanimously last night. Frank said the session was scrapped. Special quorum. Frank was indisposed. Morrison's and I sufficed. Lie. Charter demanded a full board for property-specific votes. $340,000 above appraisal. Best you'll see once word spreads. Ich glänzte her SUV, perfectly framed for arriving particulars. Here's the reality. I said evenly. Move your vehicle. Leave. Never mention buy my home again. She scoffed. Or what? More complaints? I have influence here, Curtis. People heed my warnings about troublesome residents. I lifted my phone. Rita, 2 requests. Commercial unit blocking private access. ETA. 3 minutes, boss. Unit 104 is already nearby for the event. Confusion flickered. What to? Iron Horse, I answered softly. The outfit you hired to level my garage. The one you've used against half the street. Blood left her cheeks. You don't acquire them 3 years back. I displayed the license. Every call, every phony emergency, every spite job, you paid my company. The engine growl approached. Neighbors paused, drawn by the drama. Iron Horse arrived. Jerry hopped down, assessed. Commercial vehicle exceeding residential limits. Owner refusing to relocate. Bethany's composure shattered. This is revenge. Retaliation. I opened the folder. Before hookup, let me share something with the neighborhood. Phone speaker. Her voice, 2:30 a.m., October 14th. Emergency. Immediate hazard. Remove tonight. The crowd stirred. Frank stepped up. You told us the city ordered it. Never mentioned a tow firm. I possessed emergency authority. I produced the charter excerpt. Section 12.4. Emergency measures require board consent or verified hazard. You had neither. Jerry secured chains. Metal rang. Escalade lifted. Lovely detail. I continued. Every time you weaponize my trucks against neighbors, you funded your own defeat. Landscaper tow, $1.80 to me. Dumpster, $1.20. Boat trailer, $1.60. Mrs. Palmer advanced. You towed my son's car from our drive, called it abandoned. $200 retrieval. Extortion, Jim Peterson shouted. Deputy Rodriguez materialized. I passed the binder. False reports, pattern harassment, business misuse, all documented. Rodriguez scanned pages. Ma'am, step aside. We need to talk. Escalades rose fully. The crowd cheered instinctively. For the record, I called. Bethany paid $1,200 to destroy my wife's studio, then harassed me over inventive violations while breaking commercial parking laws with her own rig. My wife would have titled the scene Perfect Symmetry. I met her gaze as cuffs appeared. Curious who runs Iron Horse? Curtis Ollie, Ollie Recovery Services. Your tab is past due. Cheers exploded as the truck departed, Escalade dangling. I stood in my liberated drive, surrounded by neighbors who finally witnessed the bully undone by her chosen tools. 3 weeks later, I sat in the morning light, Sarah's landscape glowing. The house felt alive again, anticipatory. Fresh coffee mingled with linseed oil as I brushed my first canvas in decades. The neighborhood the day fairness arrived. Bethany's consequences unfolded predictably. Investigations exposed months of false claims across jurisdictions. Charges: harassment, false reporting, impersonating authority for gain. Her SUV cost $1,247 in fees, paid to me. Resignation letter arrived via counsel. Kim apology and reimbursement for rebuild. Half the sum went to a women's shelter, Sarah's Kind of Justice. A new board formed under Frank. Morrison's exited quietly. First act: Sarah Ollie Memorial Art Fund. Art materials for schools, financed by Bethany's ill-gotten fines. My footage aided cases in her prior neighborhoods, apparent pattern. Mrs. Palmer's year-long log, merged with my records, supported advocacy for HOA victims. Jerry launched his own outfit with my blessing and 2 rigs. Block parties turned monthly. I supplied Sarah's old percolator. Everyone brought dishes. A tiny garden marked the old studio spot. Kids biked freely past. I began garage seminars, documenting abuse, decoding bylaws, spotting overreach. Attendance grew. Teaching suited me. Best moments: Sunday calls from Katie. Mom always said you were too gentle. She'd be proud you stood up. She was correct. Sarah believed bullies thrived on silence, and sometimes the deepest love meant refusing victimhood. Finishing the neighborhood portrait, I understood the shift. The house no longer echoed with absence. It waited, open for whatever arrived next.